Good day, everyone. Again, it's Paul Lawrence Vann, and glad you could join me on this YouTube channel today. Of course, leadership is influence, is the brand, it is the theme, the mantra, it's the way of life for me and for many other people. And what I'm going to share today is just about the leadership experiences that you had over the course of your working life. And even before that, maybe even when you were in high school and you were an athlete or you were um, student government president, student body president, whatever the title may have been. And just want to talk about that just a little bit today to kind of give you the ideas and the concepts that you need moving forward. And I'm glad that you could be with me for this today. What I want to talk about right off the bat is that everyone is a leader. And you're probably thinking now, what? You're thinking that way because you don't have a title, perhaps. Maybe you don't have a title, for example, a CEO or chief executive officer, or president, vice president, whatever it may be, manager, supervisor. But you really don't need those titles to be a leader, and then to be a good leader, and then ultimately a leader of influence. And I'll explain all of this. I remember being in high school. Of course, we have the principal of the high school, we have the athletic director, the football coach, basketball coach, track and field coach, golf, tennis, you name it. And everyone has a title, but it's the athletes who lead their life that makes it possible for the people with titles to do what they do and pick up a salary in the process, which is fair. And so what I'm saying is this: for as far back as you can remember, even it was in church, let's say you had a sanctuary like my kids were, and they were acolytes. So they helped the church services twice a month. They helped the chaplain out. And so they had leadership. They were going through leadership at the time, even though it wasn't a title associated with it, but they were acolytes, which meant they assisted the chaplain. And then I had a leadership role too, because I had to get them up in the morning, get them breakfast, drive them to the sanctuary, and put their clothing on that they needed to serve in that capacity. So we all had a leadership role. And guess what? You have a leadership role in what you're doing. You know why? Because you are a human being, and human beings have to lead their life. And if they don't, their life will not be with much meaning, with purpose, and neither with passion. So we all are leaders in one capacity or another, even, as I mentioned before, if we don't have the title. And so let's move forward in terms of looking in the past. So let's look at today, whatever you may be doing. Let's say you're a college student, or you're employed on your very first job, or you started your very first job, or you're working for someone. And in that process, someone is hiring you to perform a task or several tasks associated with that position and at that job at a given organization, company, whatever it may be. And in the essence of all of what I'm talking about, you are a leader. Because if you cannot lead yourself, then you probably don't have that job, but you found a way out of no way to get that job. And so it's very important to know that you are a leader. Let's say, I'll use the example of when I was in college, and I really didn't have any money to attend school. I'm one of 10 children, the oldest son in the family of two hard-working, factory-working parents. And since I was the oldest son, I interned for my parents at their community grocery store. Now, they worked at the factory, but they had the community grocery store as a side hustle. But it wasn't called a side hustle when I was coming up. It was called, son, you're going to have to work in the store after school. And so I started this journey, my leadership journey, at the age of 10. And I learned how to stock the shelves. We had vendors that would come in, and the vendors would deliver milk, bread, candy, you name it. They delivered everything. My favorite, ice cream. And in that process, I was building up my entrepreneur skills and my leadership skills because I had to work with customers and I had to take credit. And then we have to pay the vendors and then we have to sell the products. And so all of this was taking place. And I was actually having my leadership skills home. For 5 years, I was unpaid intern until I had this clever idea. I want to play football. And I figured I could do both, right? Well, I didn't. I went to my dad and said, well, Dad, I'll work in the store after football practice because it's only about an hour, hour and a half. And then I'll work in the store, get my homework done at the same time. And my dad said no. So at that point, it was time to live with my grandmother who needed someone to stay with her. And when I did that, she first thing she asked is, Paul, you want to play football, don't you? Because my mother had talked to her. And I said, yes, and that's what I did. So again, I went into another level of leadership because I had coaches, and then we had assistant coaches, and then I was the athlete. But I still had a leadership role because I had to learn to play my position, and the position I played was defensive end. So I had to learn all the techniques, all the tools. I had to lift weights to get strong. I did sprinting. I did it all. I did everything that was required of me. And so we see different characteristics and quality of a leader that comes out. There's discipline, it's fortitude, it's commitment, it's communication skills, it's that having that ability to get along with other people, it's teamwork, and it's also community-based. So anytime anyone plays sports and they live in a town or city or county, you're also representing the community in which you live. So there are a lot of different aspects, and there are people who know you that you never even know because they're sitting in the stands and they're watching you perform. And so let's look at it again from the leadership position. We wanted our team to be the best team that it could be. We were not comparing ourselves to any other team. We just wanted to be the best that we could do, especially for us seniors when the senior year finally rolled around. And so leadership skills were still taking place, but we made a commitment, and that commitment was, as leaders of the team, we're going to lead the juniors and the sophomores. So we were still building up those skills and building up those skills, even though we didn't have a title. My title was defensive end. So I knew I played on the defensive side of the ball, and our job was to stop the opposing team from scoring if possible. And so the other part of that team building was with the offensive side of the ball. And so we had to do everything that we could to give them pad them in case they couldn't score that much. We had to keep the score as low as possible. So it was teamwork that was really making the dream work for us, but it's still leadership. Or someone could be the cheerleading squad, or someone could be doing the marketing promotion of the game, the announcers, the local announcers, and then the announcers who at the away games. And the same thing held true for the track and field team, that we had to rely on other people to do it. So there was teamwork, communications taking place all over the place. And so let's fast forward. Graduation came. I was the first child in a family of 10 to graduate from high school. I went on to college, didn't have any money. So I ended up getting a summer job working for the recreation department, actually helping set up a park in our community called Fox Pond Park, which is in a small rural community in Henderson, North Carolina. And so I earned money that way. I applied for grants. And then once I made it to campus, 50 miles away at Shaw University, then I had a part-time job as an electrician assistant. And I learned how to do electrical work for a contractor who was a friend of our family. So leadership was still taking place because I had to really get myself going. I had to study during the day and work in the evenings. And I did that for the first semester. And then the second semester, I was on the track team. I was running again. And again, that takes discipline because you have to spend your time preparing for each event at the college level, which is different than the high school level. And I had to make sure I passed all my classes in order to participate. And then after that freshman year was over, it was time to start applying for the sophomore year. I applied for a job at UPS prior to going back home for the summer. And when I went back home, I worked in a factory job, something I had never done before. And I did that for 3 weeks. And then I received a phone call from United Parcel Service, UPS, and they hired me. And I worked there for another 4 years. And it was 4 years because I did not go on active duty prior to immediately after I was commissioned as second lieutenant into the Air Force upon graduation from college. So I received my degree, and the first time I marched for graduation, and then the second time I came up, it was for everyone who was going into the military. And for me, I had a lot of friends who went through Army ROTC. I went through Air Force ROTC, so I came up for that second time, and then I continued to work at UPS. So there were leadership skills, and I learned leadership skills and Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps, and leadership skill working at United Parcel Service, because I had to be very disciplined, focused, and part of teams in terms of making sure that we had the parcels going to the right trucks, they were loaded properly, and just troubleshooting any problems that may happen. So leadership takes place, and I'm sharing my leadership experiences with you because I know many of you are experiencing the same thing. Even though the industries we're in are different, it's still leadership. Leadership as a college student, leadership as a part-time employee, leadership when you graduate. And then you fast forward, I went to the United States Air Force, and I served for over 20 years. And I attended every leadership school that they had to offer. Squadron Officer School, which was the basic training for me after I was promoted to captain. And then when I was at mid-level course, at about the 13th or 14th year, I had Air Command and Staff College. And then when I came into more of the senior level, year 17, I had Air War College, even though I did not finish the program because I retired before that. I retired right at 20 years. So I did everything that I could to make sure that I was succeeding. And for many of you, the same thing holds true. So what we're going to do is just continue to work forward and learn as much as we can about leadership. So one of the things that I want to share with you is that when it comes to leadership, it's all comes down to you obtaining experience at it. And so you say, well, nowadays a lot of jobs are virtual, and they are, but there's still a leadership component that is a part of it. And you have to be able to recognize it. And the key to recognizing is, what is your role? And your role is, you initially start employment with a company, and you building a good, strong relationship with your supervisor or manager, someone who does have a title as a leader, or the CEO for that fact, depending on the size of the company. And when you build that, you find out what are your responsibilities. And once you find out what your responsibilities are, you're going to go to the next level of making that particular job and that job title more of a leadership role, by taking the initiative and volunteering for different projects that you know can help solve problems for the company that you work for. And that's what work is all about, and a job is all about. It's about solving problems, providing products and services to customers, or consulting, whatever it may be. But if you approach it from the standpoint of, I want to take this levels deeper, or take it to the next level, that's when the leadership starts coming in. And then you let your supervisors know that you want any major projects come up, that you want to lead that effort. And not only do you want to lead it, but you also want to bring on team members with you, other people who are employed there. And the more you do this, the more your leadership muscles will grow. It's just like a weightlifter. When I have to lift weights to play football, over time, you have muscle memory. The same thing happens. You have leadership muscle memory. And that leadership muscle memory is, again, those communication skills, your level of influence, the different characteristics that you have, that you're trustworthy, people can depend on you. You have no hesitation in making yourself available for the tough jobs, and you build your team. And if it's an effort to help improve the sales or generate more revenue, then you have to get your sales team together, your marketing team, And then at that point, you'll be able to separate yourself and your team from the competition, other people in the same industry that are doing the same thing. And so leadership is taking place with everything that you do. And if you don't have leadership opportunities on your job or where you're employed, you can also gain leadership experiences as a volunteer. I recall working, after I had retired, I started working for the governor of Maryland. And one of the initiatives was more of a financial one, where I was with a committee, a financial working group committee, and we wanted to get financial literacy into high schools and make it an option or elective for seniors at the high school. And go 5 years, and that was passed through the Maryland legislature. So I was gaining connections, meeting state, House, and Senate representatives. I was meeting people in the governor's office. So I was continuing, even after I retired, I continued to volunteer. And 5 years later, that particular bill that passed for the first time for financial literacy for seniors is now for high school students, ninth through 12. And so now that bill that was just for seniors is for all high school students. And that never would have happened had we not worked on that project and that effort, because we know that given these economic times now, people need to understand what money is all about. And see, again, it was another leadership experience. And so what I want you to take from today's episode is to always position yourself to approach things from a leadership standpoint, whether it's as a volunteer in the community, maybe working for a nonprofit organization, whether you're with a sports team, whether you're working with a local county or city government, or with a mayor or with a governor. There are a lot of opportunities to gain more experience. And then, of course, you can study about leaders that you admire, and you don't have to work with them, but you can pick up a book or you can read a documentary about them. Nowadays, with the audiobooks, you can learn quite a bit. One of the people that I followed for years was General Colin Powell. And the interesting thing is that once I was in the Pentagon, my first year in the Pentagon, I actually met him. And so I purchased his books. I would watch him as he's speaking at different conferences, and also in the local community here based in Washington, D.C. So you can do that. And then what you want to do is you want to ask your leadership, your management with the title, if they will enroll you in a leadership development workshop or with a leadership program. And that's affiliated with your organization or company that you work with, because it will give you and make you a more valuable asset for your organization by having these leadership skills. And it's pretty much the journey that I have. And for everyone, there is a leadership journey. You just have to decide, when does yours begin? You've actually already been on a leadership journey since a very young age, but you just did not view it from that perspective because no one had told you that. But in essence, that's exactly what you were doing. Let's say if you want a debate team, or again, if you want a sports team, if you were the student body president, there's so many different roles that you have been in that would reflect leadership in some form or another. And again, you don't have to have the title, but you are part of it anyway, because you have a life to lead. So you are naturally a leader. Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know this when I was young either. But when I look back in retrospect and I'm writing books and I'm reflecting about my past life in my youth, or as I was in college, I started picking up on these things. So there was a trend that was taking place. And I always found myself volunteer for this committee, that committee in college, or in the military. I was volunteering on all types of committees. And in the end, they all added up, those experiences added up to me developing to a leader, and ultimately a leader of influence when I started supervising people in the military and active duty, especially there in the Pentagon for 12 years. So this ends this particular episode of Leadership is Influence. Again, my name is Paul Lawrence Vann, and I thank you for your time. And I will see you on the next episode for my YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you can always email me at info@paulvannspeaks.com, and I will be glad to take any questions that you have. See you on the next episode. Have a great day.